immigration reform bill that by all indications will not survive the House of Representatives. They want to draft a bill with greater focus on securing the border with Mexico. There's a documentary. It's a remarkable documentary, and it's called They Come to America Too. It gives us a glimpse of what parts of the border look like now.
In this part of the world, we don't have a lot of tourist attractions, but this is one of them. This is an emergency distress beacon. And most people find it curious that it's in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese. And since the last time we were out here, they've even been so nice as to add a 5-gallon bucket of water. Courtesy of the United States government.
I have a question for you. Why do you think that sign should be down along the border in Texas? Written in English, written in Spanish, and in Chinese. The government made that, Congressman.
Our government?
Yes. I mean, you've been in Congress for 22 years, right?
Right.
Okay. Has anybody ever showed you that picture before?
No.
Nobody's ever,
no.
nobody's ever gone to one of your hearings and said, look at this picture.
No.
No.
Joining me is the producer of the documentary, Dennis Michael Lynch. Dennis, this is a remarkable film that you have made. Thank you very much for joining us to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been down on these borders. You've talked to the agents who work there. So this is not something that you've just seen pictures of. You have physically been there for extended periods of time. What are they telling you, especially in light of the immigration reform bill?
Well, yeah, I mean, I worked alongside them. Nighttime, morning time, all the time. It is so dangerous down at that border, and you don't see that on television because cameramen usually don't go there. And what they're saying is that they can't do their job. They're understaffed. They're not given the resources that they need. They're not given the support that they need. And they're very frustrated. They're not allowed to speak to the press. They're not allowed to speak to the people. They want to say, hey, listen, this is what's coming through, and everything is coming through.
What is coming through down there?
Oh, well, you just saw there's an abundance of Chinese, and why that's very dangerous.
Chinese? I didn't know we bordered China. I guess that's a new one for me. I thought I passed geography, but
yeah.
What is that? I mean, how are Chinese coming across the Mexican border?
You know, we're joking about it, but it's very, very serious. Because as I asked Congressman King if I had a bus of drug cartel members, Hezbollah, or Chinese nationals, what don't you want to get through? And he said the Chinese nationals. And the reason being is because the Chinese nationals, they could create a cyber 9/11. And I witnessed 9/11 firsthand. I mean, I was like this, and I ran from those buildings. A cyber 9/11 would make that day look simple. I mean, we're talking about shutting down our air traffic control or shutting down the electric grid on the East Coast. This country would not be able to get through that sort of thing. So the fact that we're allowing that to come through the border, in fact, Marketing 101, make your signs out so the people are going to read them, right? So you have that. I'm catching 60 people at a clip with the Border Patrol agents, and mixed in are people from the Middle East. And, you know, it doesn't take a lot for Mohammed to transform himself into Miguel. And that's what they do. They try to blend in and they get through. And, Governor, even if the Border Patrol catches 20, the other 40 are getting through.
You said there were 3 things that need to be done. What are those 3 things?
3 things that need to be done to stop these people?
Right.
Okay, number 1 thing is will. There's no will to stop the people. You could throw a gazillion dollars at this problem. Unless you have will, forget about it. But if I were the President of the United States, right, I'd walk off this set right now and I'd call up the National Guard based on what I've seen coming through the border, and I'd have them down there now. And while they're down there, I would build a double fence, because all the areas in the country that have double fencing, they've limited the crossings by 95%. So you got will, you've got National Guard, and you got a double fence. When you get those 3 things in order, you'll be safe.
The Senate would argue that their bill puts billions of new dollars and 20,000 more Border Patrol agents on the border, so what's not to love?
I go back. I mean, first of all, that bill is one of those things where you have to read the same page over and over and again because you're like, what did that just say? It makes no sense, okay? So again, I go back. The money thing is not it. I'm in places in Arizona right now where you have one border agent standing on a 10-mile stretch right outside a drug cartel, and yet we've got 200 border trucks sitting in the parking lot. This is not a matter of money. This is a matter of saying, Immigration law protects the American worker, and it protects the American life. And right now the government is just saying, well, you know, if it happens to you, it happens to you, and I'm very sorry. That's not leadership. That's not what these people voted for.
What is the worst thing that you have personally seen at the border that ought to scare the rest of us out of our pants?
I've seen the fact that there's nobody stopping the people from coming over. And that...
Is this a Border Patrol issue? I mean, do they want to stop them?
This is, of course they want to stop them. They want to do their job. Nobody enters the world of law enforcement so this way they can turn their eye the other way. Okay? We have a 40-mile stretch of the Rio Grande. You'll see this in the film. 40-mile stretch. We have 2 Border Patrol boats traveling together. Okay, 40 miles. And as I'm going down, it's drug cartel scout after drug cartel scout with groups of guys just coming over. And when you see in my film where I'm capturing these people, that's 100 miles into Texas. The majority of people are getting through. So when President Obama and Janet Napolitano and even the Gang of 8 say about how whether or not the border is more secure than ever before, I'm sorry, that's not the truth. It's not. My film proves it.
Well, maybe they'll watch it.
They better.
The rest of us will. Coming up, I'm going to ask Dennis about the immigration reform bill that has been passed by the Senate. And does it prevent American citizens from finding work? Now, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Better stick around.
What do you think is going to happen if 11 million illegal immigrants are now allowed to compete for the same job?
Bringing more immigrants in is going to make it worse than it already is.
I'm all about us making it over here first before we can take care of someone else. I think that's the important thing.
I've been seeing a lot of companies hiring illegal immigrants, paying them off the books cash, and they don't even look toward us because they can make more money for themselves and pay all these immigrants less money.
I just want a job. That's it. Give Americans a chance first.
Under the Senate immigration reform bill, immigrant workers are not allowed to receive Obamacare benefits. Texas Senator Ted Cruz argues that that's going to give employers an incentive to actually fire workers who are here now legally and replace them with immigrants. Dennis, let's pick it up there. You know, that's kind of an interesting scenario. Is that possible?
Of course it is. It's exactly what it is. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the silver bullet to the American worker's head. You know, the Gang of 8, there's not one person in there who's ever operated a business, okay? So they don't look at this the right way like I do. When I heard Marco Rubio cheerleading that, you know, they don't get Obamacare, immediately I said to myself, I said, my goodness, that's terrible. Because as patriotic as I am, and I've been an entrepreneur since I've been 18 years old, you know, I understand that the cost of health care is the difference between a business sinking or swimming. So now all of a sudden I have my American workers, 60 people here, and I can hire illegal immigrants legally and not have to give them Obamacare. I save $5,000 per head. And that is enough for me, as patriotic as I am, again, to say, I'm sorry, you need to go home, and I'm going to hire these folks. I could do it legally. So even when they say, you know, they're not going to get welfare benefits, I'm going to have to give it to them instead. This is a pathway to disaster. And we will never understand until it happens that America will never be the America we know. We will go down to a one-party system, which is no good for anybody, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. We will have unprecedented unemployment. And, as we saw in the last segment, each one of these persons' lives is in grave danger. Because let me tell you, we just watched the city of Boston shut down for a week because of 2 guys who learned how to use pressure cookers. Every terrorist said, wow, we don't have to fly airplanes into buildings anymore. So they're sitting back there right now thinking to themselves, how do we do this on every other Tuesday across all the malls in America?
Well, at an unemployment office in South Carolina, Dennis let the folks who were in the line listen to the words of their own Senator, Lindsey Graham. Let's watch.
This is your senator.
I want it to be a win-win where somebody overseas can come here temporarily.
Why would they do that? Have somebody come over and take over what we have?
Do you hear what he just said?
Is that a gimmick, you think?
Is that a gimmick? No, he did this in a Senate hearing.
Oh.
You know, there's 11 million illegal immigrants right now in the country.
Yep.
He wants to give those illegal immigrants citizenship so this way they could also compete against you in these jobs.
They're already getting the jobs. Yeah, they're done getting it.
They're already getting the jobs?
Yes. We need these jobs for our family, or we wouldn't be here.
These were a lot of people, they were in South Carolina. They were at a job fair looking for work. Explain their frustration as you talk to them.
Well, that was the unemployment line. I mean, I always get a little choked up when I see that because, you know, what you don't see in that clip is people grabbing my hand saying, please don't stop doing what you're doing. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned now that the Senate bill has passed, I've got to work even harder starting tomorrow for those folks. Look, there is this crazy idea that Americans don't want to do the hard work. It's a lie. Americans want to work. You know, a broken spirit is what I saw most often when I traveled the country making this film. What's the cost you put on that, Governor? You know, and I say this, I know it sounds maybe a little salesy, but it's not. It comes from the heart. If people go to theycometoamerica.com and they get the DVD, I've been doing this for a year. I send them free copies. Take those copies and give it to people who don't watch Fox, because you are the only people who are being responsible and really telling both sides of the story. You know, and they go out, and what happens? The congressmen wind up calling me. Stephen King just called me and said, listen, I want you down in front. I'm going to be in front of the congressional hearings, saying what it is that I'm finding in the desert, seeing what I'm seeing on the unemployment lines. Americans are starving for change, Governor.
Do you think there will be a very different reaction in the House than we saw in the Senate? I mean, I'm expecting there will be.
There better be, because I'm going to be on them like white on rice. I'll tell you right now. This is, Governor, this has to stop. We are at a point in time in America where the President and many members of Congress are more concerned about the well-being of illegal immigrants than they are the American citizens. That's wrong. It's just like being on an airplane. You got to put the mask on you first before I put it on you, because I can't take care of you if I'm not healthy myself. If I were the President of the United States, I'd get everybody back to work. I would get these borders secure. And then, after we were solid, we were back to being that shining city on the hill, then I would reach out across the world and say, we're going to help you out.
Dennis, we appreciate you being here. It's a real pleasure.